Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Leon County Today with Sheriff Walt McNeil. Sheriff, welcome back to the desk.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I tell you, I missed this desk and having these conversations.
Yes.
I know that Ron Cave and Steve Harrelson filled in admirably, so
They
I
did.
know things went on just as though I was here.
They did indeed. Well, we're glad to have you back, and we're talking about what can be a really sensitive subject today, although it's something that a lot of people deal with, and we're talking about suicide awareness. And we've seen these cases here in our community. They don't get talked about a lot, but there are a lot of families impacted by suicides.
Oh, absolutely. That number of persons that we, in law enforcement, we haven't talked about, but for several years, the leading cause of death for police officers was suicides. Mm-hmm. And that was our secret that we didn't talk about. And quite honestly, now we're starting to talk about it more and more and more, and trying to do things to make sure that our deputies, our officers understand that there's help out there for them. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing, that there's help out there available. And we've got to make sure people like myself in leadership positions have to make sure that they're aware of it and they get the help they need.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there are a couple of professions that, we see this more often in. Our guest today that we're going to hear from a local mom, her son who was a veterinarian, someone I knew very dearly, one of my leadership Tallahassee classmates. And so, and she's now honoring his legacy. When we look at these and the stress factors that build up to this, it's really important to have a system in place to help people who are dealing with depression and things of that nature.
Absolutely. I listened to some of the Olympic athletes that talked about their situation and their fear and the reluctance to report it, and finally having the ability to reach out and let somebody know that they're suffering from these problems with depression, what have you. Mm-hmm. That is key. And our guest today is going to talk about how we can more effectively identify the issues and give people the space to allow them to express that they've got a problem and they want help for it. And that's what this is all about, making sure we can find those persons and give them the opportunity to get the help that they need.
Right. I think one of the other misconceptions when we talk about suicide, we look at the recent case of former Miss USA, and I think a lot of people think, someone who's moping around all day, but there are some people who are high functioning, but you never know what they're dealing with behind the scenes, which is why it's important to be kind and look for those signs.
Yeah, it's like the Olympic gymnast, I forget her name, but she's out there performing like nothing's happened, no problems whatsoever, but all the time in the background, she's having all these issues of anxiety and fear,
right.
and she's afraid to let that come out because she won't be able to compete in the Olympics. And that's the kind of pressure that most of our individuals are engaged in or under, and that's where we step in, people in leadership positions, trying to make sure we give people that space, that opportunity to express that themselves and take away this stigma that's attached to mental health issues. It's nothing different than an illness you've got, a heart condition, or a disease, whatever it might be. It's the same thing. People need help, and we've got to make sure that we give them that space in our society so that they can receive that help. I am so excited about our today's guest to talk about suicides and how we can prevent those. We in the Leon County Sheriff's Office are extremely focused on trying to make sure we take care of the members of the Leon County Sheriff's Office and globally take care of police officers, because they have those same stressors every day when they go out there in the field and they're seeing the worst of our society, but not able to express it. Hopefully we'll get some pointers here on how we can also help our deputies and our staff here in the Leon County Sheriff's Office.
Absolutely, a lot to unpack in today's show, so be sure to stick around. Coming up next, a mom on a mission to honor her son's legacy and help save lives. But first, let's check in with Sergeant McMillan with your Crime Tip Tuesday.
Hello everyone, this is Sergeant Shade McMillan with the Leon County Sheriff's Office, and here's today's Crime Tip Tuesday. Garages can provide easy access to the interior of a home for a possible burglar. Here are some tips on how to better secure your garage against someone breaking in. Make sure interior garage doors are securely shut flush with the floor, leaving no space to be pried open. Lock any doors connecting the garage to the house. Keep an automatic garage door opener in a secure location. Never leave it in an unlocked vehicle or when the car is being serviced. While on vacation, unplug the automatic garage door opener and padlock the track. Keep your home safe.
Joining me now is a mom who knows all too well the devastation of suicide. Cyndi Godbey's son tragically took his own life in 2019. Cyndi, thank you for being here with us. sharing with your story. Tell us about Jeff.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Sheriff. My son, as was mentioned earlier, was a veterinarian. He worked in emergency veterinary care, but he was so much more than that. He was a very loving husband to a gorgeous young lady, a doting father to a little baby girl who will be 4 in April. But he was even more than that. He made a habit of letting other veterinarians in the community know that he would be willing to take relief shifts for them so they could take vacation or maternity leave. And, but also he was really into music. He managed a band called The Feeling Ecstatic. He wrote songs for them and sang. And I think very, very well beloved in that community. He was also very determined to make a difference, have an impact on the community. And so he went through the Leadership Tallahassee program and had just graduated maybe a month before his death. But he was definitely on his way to making a mark in this community, and I was so proud of him.
Well, we can see that. You've got a glow about it. Tell us about, Jeff was struggling with some things that unfortunately led to his tragedy. Talk about his mental state at the time.
Well, the interesting thing about that, Sheriff, is I'd never seen him happier. I was so proud, and I would always tell him, Jeff, I'm so proud of you. And he'd say, why? And I'd say, because you're living the dream. You're doing all the things you ever wanted to do, and you're successful at everything. But I did know from earlier years that he would occasionally suffer from depression. And I was really glad to find out that the February before this happened, he had gone to a doctor and had gotten a prescription. I found out later that he had quit taking it. So I think that's an important thing for people to understand. If a doctor says you need some help, you probably need a little help.
Now, you describe him as joyful, engaging, no signs of any problems whatsoever. What would you say, are there any indicators that you now look back on that can be helpful to our audience here?
Yeah, sadly, after the fact, you start and you thinking about it, you wonder, oh my goodness, I should have seen something. And then I did remember that about the same time he started seeing the doctor, I noticed that when he would come to visit, I didn't get that full-on big teddy bear hug. You know, I'd get the kind of stoic, aloof, obligatory hug and release, you know, and I really wish I had said something to him about that.
Wow, wow.
And that's so subtle.
Yeah. Now you've started, based on that tragedy, that tragic situation with Jeff, you've now started a foundation that seeks to help citizens out there. Tell us about the foundation.
Well, it's called the Jeffery Bear Foundation. Jeffrey Bear was a nickname that
you gave him, huh?
No, a lot of his friends actually
Jeffrey
gave it to
Bear,
him.
okay.
In fact, he was Jeffrey Bear, his wife was Mama Bear, and their little girl was Baby Bear. And I really want to step in and do what I can to increase awareness in the community about the stresses and the struggles that veterinarians face on a regular basis. It has become a national epidemic. Female veterinarians are 3.5 times more likely to take their lives than the general public. Male veterinarians are 2 times more likely to take their lives than the general public. And I want to try and change that. We are affiliated with, we are an official partner with a national organization called Not One More Vet, and of course their mission is to reduce suicide amongst the veterinary community.
Wow. Well, Cyndi, thank you so much for sharing Jeff's story and for everything you're doing with the foundation.
Thank you.
To learn more, log in to jeffreybearfoundation.com. Coming up, an LCSO victim advocate says help is available. More on suicide awareness when we get back. Thank you. We're back with LCSO victim advocate Maria Folsom. Maria, suicides happen more often than some may think. What are some of the signs that someone might be struggling with suicide?
When somebody's struggling, it can come in different forms. And one way you could look at is some behavior changes, something different than the norm of your loved one. Sometimes that can show up as isolation, especially if they're not that type of person where they used to be very open and taking your calls, and they start stopping and they're kind of hiding away. That could be a sign. Another sign would be some risky behaviors that you're noticing, drugs and alcohol being excessive. But it also may not just be behaviors. It could be some verbal signs to listen for, and that's difficult because visually everything seems okay, but if you listen, they may be expressing some depression in just enough terms so that you go, there may be something going on there. But I do need to point out that sometimes it's just hard to see.
Yeah.
And so many people deal with guilt because
Yes.
they wish that they had done something or wish they knew, and it's not their fault. Sometimes people don't know how to ask for help.
Okay. So if you see someone that is displaying some of those traits, if you will, that you think is going to maybe commit suicide, what should you do? What action should you take?
So that's a big question. And it's really important to understand one of the best recommendations I have is to open dialogue. And if you're going to be that person, you need to consider yourself the safe person for them. So if you're going to start that discussion, you need to make sure you don't have judgment if they do start talking to you. So what that means is when they start expressing any concerns about, why my life is messing up, what's the point, if there's any hopelessness, and you're going to be that person, you need to make sure you don't throw in their face, well, you've got a great job or you've got a great family. That's all judgment. When you're going to open dialogue, you're going to be there, you're going to be present, and you're going to love them, and you're going to stop talking.
What does judgment do? I mean, okay, it's judgment. How does it negatively manifest itself?
Well, because they've already thought of all those things, and what's happening in somebody's brain is that they're telling themselves, there's no point in this, there's no hope for their future, and all you're doing is make them feel bad again. Like they've already thought about this. And in their brain, they may have actually believed that their children's life may be better without them because they've been messing up. So you throwing guilt is just adding fuel to the fire instead of just loving them, being there for them, and just telling them, what do you need me to do,
So is that then the role of the victim advocate to get in that space, or exactly what is your role?
Well, so in our role, it's different. We show up on scene. So generally, it already happened. We're helping the families at this stage. If before to get to that stage, what I would suggest is when you're opening the dialogue and you hear any kind of concern, be straightforward with them. And if you feel like there's a concern of suicide, you need to ask them straightforward, are you thinking about killing yourself? And it's shocking, it's uncomfortable, but it gets straight to the point. And if they say yes, you need to get professionals involved right away. Our role is completely different, where there is already a situation that's happened, we're there on scene because now the criminal justice system has been activated. The tape is up, and you can't access the crime scene at this point. And we help families deal with that crisis of emotion that they're going through and deal with the criminal justice system. And we help the detectives, we help the scene stay clear, and then we help process with whatever they're going through and answer questions when it comes up.
So, Maria, what resources are available to citizens going through these processes here locally?
We have some great resources in Tallahassee. There's a program called the Lost Team of the Big Bend, and these are the information that we give off to families, and they are run by volunteers who've experienced it themselves. Big Bend Hospice runs bereavement programs. They have group therapy, they have individual, they're knowledgeable in the process, and then there's 211, the 24 crisis hotline for anybody to call. So if you are concerned for your loved one, you can call, or if you yourself is battling, you can call yourself and talk to somebody from 211.
Wow. Maria, thank you for the great job you and your team do in this community. And thanks for all that you do, your team does, and thank you to Ms. Godbey for her statements today. Up next, our deputy on duty takes us to LCSO's driver training course. Stay tuned.
This time about 25 miles an hour, and go right.
Being behind the wheel is definitely going to be the vast majority of our job. So it's different. It's not the way you drive a regular vehicle, even though the mechanics and everything are, but you want to do it where it's safely. So we're learning the vehicle, learning the roads. That way, once we get out there, we can serve our community properly. Some of the training that we've been going through today would be our evasive maneuvers, pretty much simulating you're going down a straightaway. There's something, I guess, blocking, or let's say there's a vehicle in the road. You pretty much have to be able to switch lanes swiftly. That way you can stay and not cause any casualties to yourself nor the community.
Right. Good job.
If you're not confident behind these vehicles, you won't be able to maneuver them properly. Like I said, that's what our training has set upon, is getting you comfortable from driving something smaller to something this big and being able to use that asset properly. You think you know how to drive until you get out here and you get behind one of these Tahoes or Crown Vics, whatever you're in, and you start going on these paths. But definitely, like I said, it's all about that confidence and just from aside from confidence, just knowing your training and knowing how to maneuver the vehicle, know how to learn the vehicle, and you won't have any issues driving these at all.
At high speeds, that the deputy is able to make evasive moves and brake the vehicle without making the truck skid or go out of control. It's basically, we only get up to about 30 miles an hour. It seems faster, feels faster, especially in a truck. And then we do a serpentine to just simulate going in and out of obstacles. So we have them consistently do it left to right. It just kind of, the whole course is at relatively a little higher speed than just driving speed. You get them up to basically 30 miles an hour. The vehicle actually does most of the work for them once they understand in the confidence that the vehicle is not going to flip on them, or as long as they understand the mechanics of it. And so it's a little counterintuitive to drive a vehicle this big at that type of speed, making those kind of maneuvers. However, once you get the reps in it, it actually works out. And you can we'll see if I can make it work. We can do it in reverse order. And most of it's the mechanics and understanding what the vehicle can and can't do.
Speed to the left this time.
Once you're in the zone and once you're behind that seat, the cones are kind of non-existent. Even though they're there physically, you know that this is a road you're imagining. This is a roadway, and if I come to this obstacle or if I come to this turn, I'll be able to maneuver this vehicle. It's definitely just having confidence in driving. Just like I said, these are bigger vehicles. Having the confidence to drive them like it's a small sedan. I don't want to jinx anything, but I definitely feel very comfortable behind the vehicle. Driving this, I don't think will be any issue out in the field. Our trainers have trained us enough to where like I said, you don't see a big vehicle. You see a small car, a Prius or something. You're just comfortable. It's all about your confidence of maneuvering the vehicle and everything. That's what our training has done to help us get there. We have plenty of tools on our belt, but the vehicle is our biggest tool. This is our way to get to our citizens if they call for help. It's just another asset, one of your biggest assets. And we have plenty of lights for safety. Lights aren't just for stopping people, but if we're on an accident scene or anything, the lights are immaculate on these Tahoes. Very bright, visible to everyone, so that way they can see them. It's just another tool that you get used to, and it's a great asset to us.
I got it up, the last 2 times I got it up 31 and just backed off the car. So it felt comfortable going into the turn.
Welcome back to Leon County Today with Sheriff Walt McNeil. Sheriff, another full show, and hearing from Deputy McCrae. First of all, he, from being an explorer with us when he was a teenager to now, his development is really miraculous.
Oh, he is the up-and-comer in the Leon County Sheriff's Office. I was talking to sheriffs at the Capitol when he was there making a presentation for us, And every one of those sheriffs said, hey, we want that kid from you. We're going to steal that kid
We're
from
going to
you.
keep him for sure. But, I think that's one of the aspects when, some people think about training for a deputy. They don't always think about that driving training and how important it is.
Well, it's perhaps, aside from the weapon training we do, driving training is as vital a tool as we have to get to a location. We always say if you can't get there safely, then there's no need for you trying to get there. So we have to drive with blue lights and sirens, but the idea is to get there safely. And when you get there, get there in a timely manner. So we have to make sure that we train constantly on driving issues and driving patterns, and so that it becomes second nature to you. As I understand one of our young deputies said, it's a tool, and we have to make sure we utilize it correctly.
Absolutely. And, our guest today, what a remarkable job sharing such important information. I'm really proud to be affiliated with the Jeffery Bear Foundation. He was a member of my Leadership Tallahassee class, and I know him as this vibrant, outgoing person. So I think it's really interesting. The former Miss USA, I heard a news anchor say, check on your strong friends, because you never know what people are going through, and such great information shared today.
And in this society, we put on these fronts. So check on your friends.
Yes.
Good advice.
Good advice indeed. All right. Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you all for joining us for another episode. We'll see you back here next week.